Well, my name is Edward Elowitz, and what can I say? Jenny's my granddaughter, who's a lovely girl, and she's asked me to give a little synopsis or a story about part of the time that I did in my service when I was there. I was in the service from 1952 to 1956. And my first place that I went to was Parks Air Force Base in right near Hayward, California, which is near San Francisco. And I went to radio technical school there. They taught me how to repair radios, service radios, take them all apart, put them together, do all kinds of testing. And I graduated from the radio school and I became a radio technician. This was my choice. When you leave basic training, they ask everybody what they want to do, and I was just one of the few who got what I asked for. Most of them didn't. And so people that I went to school with, I never saw them again. After I got through this basic training, I never saw them again either.
Oh, wow.
Because everybody is sent some other place. And after a month or so, I was given orders to go overseas to Korea, which I didn't expect to do that. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have got married at that particular point. But you had to ask for permission to marry somebody, and the CEO, the commander in charge, said I probably wouldn't go overseas for a while. So that gave me the permission to go ahead and marry if I wanted. When was that? Let me see. That was in February of 1954, and I was stationed at a place called Kimpo Air Force Base in Kimpo, Korea, which is about 20 miles from Seoul, Korea. The Korean War was over in 1953, but I got there in 1954, so there was no more fighting. The truce was good. There wasn't any fighting, but the base I was at was closest to the front lines. We were only about 8 miles from the front lines where all the fighting was. The base that I was, there was a lot of fighting and bombing on my base that I was there, but by the time I got there, the fighting and bombing was all over. But while I was there, we had to be ready every day in case there was going to be some bombing.
Why were you still over there if the war and fighting was over? Well,
because the Air Force Base was there, and it was there as a protection to the South Koreans in case something was there. In fact, the base was there for many years. I was able to take a short trip to Tokyo. That was fun. That was for a Passover Seder. And the only place in Tokyo was there, and it was about 600 miles from where I was stationed. So we flew down there. There were just 2 of us. And we went to this large Seder there, and then we were done, and we walked around Tokyo for a few days. It was all Japanese.
It was all Japanese.
It was all Japanese, yeah. But some of them spoke a little English.
Were they nice to you over there?
Oh, they were very friendly, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And then what did you do after you left Japan?
When I left Japan, I took another ship back to Seattle. It took about 14 days to go back to Seattle. And then I flew to Los Angeles. And then my wife met me in Los Angeles. I had a son who was born in September of the previous year. And my next base was Yuma, Arizona. It was an Air Force base. In fact, it's still there now, but it was a testing base for airplanes and for different things.
Do you feel like when you came back, you felt different about the work that you were now doing, like after seeing Korea and being over there? And
well, of course, when I came back to Yuma, there was no problems of worrying about war or anything. I mean, it was all peaceful time. Mm-hmm. So it was more or less just like a regular job I would go to. I mean, every day I would go to the base, and then I would leave the base.
Why did you decide to join in the first place?
Well, I was 17 and a half. I just graduated high school. And it was either going to work someplace or most everybody wanted to enlist. The Korean War was on. It was from 1950 to 1953. This was in June of 1952. So the war was on. I guess I just wanted to enlist and do my part for the country. I'm glad I did, yes.
Do you think the war was something that we should have been fighting in? I mean, what was your opinion on on the war
Well,
over there?
my opinion of the war was like any war that we're in. I don't think we should have been there at all in the first. But we wanted to protect people that we were friendly with. South Korea, we weren't friendly with North Korea, but we were friendly with Japan and people in Europe and things like that. So I guess it was just our duty to help the people in South Korea, just like we did in Vietnam and we did in the Gulf War and Iraq and all these places that we're doing now. It's just something that the United States chose to do all the time. Well, the only thing that I probably knew is that North Korea, which was the enemy, and South Korea, which was our friends, and North Korea was bombing South Korea, so we went there to protect South Korea against these North Koreans. And it took almost 3 years in order for us to accomplish that. We really never knew what kind of was going on. The only thing that we did know that there wasn't any fighting. We had a truce, but we were ready in case the truce was going to be broken. When I enlisted, we had the draft too, and I chose to enlist rather than being drafted.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I didn't mention that before, but in each war the government does draft the guys to do that. And I was 17 and a half, so when I was 18, I probably would have been drafted, so I chose to enlist instead. That way I could have my choice of really what I wanted to do. You're drafted into the Army. If you enlist, you can enlist in the Air Force, the Navy, or the Marines. And I chose the Air Force. I wanted to maybe fly someday, which I never was able to do, but I flew an airplane. When you're drafted into the Army, and I didn't really want to go into the Army, so that's why I just chose to enlist myself.
Were you ever afraid that you were going to be put in harm's way? Like when you enlisted, you were in boot camp before, you knew what you were going to be doing. Were you scared that you were going to be put in?
I enlisted during the Korean War and never knew what was going to happen. I never knew if I was going to go overseas to some country or what. And so I guess when you're that age, you're really not afraid. You just, you're 17, you're 18 years old. You do whatever they tell you to do, and that's what you have to do. We're on the front lines because we were sent to Korea, the fighting was stopped. So while we're right near the front lines, there wasn't any fighting at all.